Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and today's lesson is going to take place in the 25th chapter in the book of Matthew. We're going to span the range of verses 13 through 30. This is the second of the three parables in this chapter, the first of which is the parable of the 10 virgins, the second of which, the one we'll be covering today, is the parable of the talents, and the final and most famous of which is the parable of the sheep and the goats. Now, the first and the third are unique to Matthew, and the one we're going to read today, the middle one, has a similar but not identical version in Luke's 19th chapter. We invite you to do your research on your own. We're going to backtrack a bit while you can turn there and figure it out. I think it's 12 through 17. But in the 21st chapter, this is the final week in his life. The Messiah enters triumphantly into Jerusalem, and that is the city where he's going to be crucified within the week, but he's received and welcomed with open arms, fulfilling many of the Old Testament prophecies of Zechariah. He comes on a colt and a donkey, and the crowd waves palms and sings hosannas and says, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahweh." Then in the 22nd chapter, we witness him entertain a host of theological disputes and controversies in the temple. The Pharisees, the Herodians, the Sadducees, they're all there, the scribes. He dismantles each and every one of them. He emerges triumphant. Then in the 23rd chapter, he pronounces the 7 woes. He issues his indictment of the Pharisees. And then in the 24th chapter, he's the Mount of Olivet discourse is the end times, the main thing we read of the end times in the synoptics. Mark 13 and Luke 21 give, but there are details in that and that are unique to especially Matthew. Matthew has the most material on it, his chapter being 51 verses, but we're going to review the first 12 verses of the 25th chapter. This is the parable of the virgins. "Then the kingdom of the heavens shall be compared to 10 maidens who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom." This is a wedding ceremony that would have consisted of a bride and a bridegroom, and the bride would have been accompanied by 10 virgins or maidens to assist her in her preparations and for the ceremony and everything, and they would have had lamps because they would have needed light. But this is a kingdom analogy, so pay attention to the heavenly principle. Try not to get lost on the wedding protocols and what. And that of these 10, there are 5 who are wise, 5 who are foolish. The 5 who are wise prepare and make the prearrangements and accommodations to have their lamps, the oil supplying the burning of their lamps. And but the foolish neglect to do so. Then when they're sleeping and slumbering, and at midnight a cry was heard, "See, the bridegroom is coming, go out to meet him." The bridegroom's imminent coming, his sudden coming, he comes like a thief in the night, and this is a reference to the second coming, and it's connected to, it bleeds off the Mount Olivet end time discourse. After the tribulation and the end, he's going to come, and some people are not going to be prepared for him. Others will be wise, and they will heed the warning and read the warning, heed the warning, and learn and live what they read in the Bible. "And the foolish said to the wise, 'Give us your oil, because our lamps are going out.'" So they neglected to provide it for themselves. They had all the opportunity and the time, but they were not wise. The wise took their preparation seriously. The return of the bride would have been a more serious offense than neglecting. So there's nothing really comparable in neglecting. As terrible as it is, and I don't want to recommend that you blow your friend's wedding or anything like that, but you especially don't want to offend, by not watching, not witnessing for, not working in and working towards the coming of the Son of Man. And he will come for his bride, and you and I don't have a thing we can bring as part of our dowry, but what we do have is the gifts that he gives us, and that ties into our parable of the talents. Talent is a term of money, but we can also read it as talent, as in the gifts and opportunities. We'll explain that when we get there. And while they went to buy, so they send them off to buy them. They say, no, we have enough for ourselves, but if we give to you, we're not going to last and we're not going to make it. And while they went to buy, these are the foolish ones, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready with him to the wedding feast, and the door was shut. So they're in, and he could care less about the rest of them. They missed their window. It was too late. They should have been prepared. They should have been ready. They were not there. The ones who were prepared and ready and not, saving the emergency crutch, the last-minute situation, the foxhole atheist mentality. And, they knock on the door after they... the door had already been shut and locked behind them, but they knock once they finally get their oils in their lamps, and he tells them, I do not know you. Same thing he says in the 7th chapter, depart from me, you workers of iniquity. Watch therefore, and then that's the 12th verse. So if you sleep through the end times, which are unfolding as we speak, if you're not alert, if you're not active, if you're not paying attention, if you're not know what's going on, if you're not laboring to bring the kingdom to pass. And what can we do to bring the kingdom to pass? Well, before he has to return, this good news has to go to the ends of the earth, all across the world. And we got some work to do because the Bible is banned in 52 countries. Now I want to concentrate on the lesson itself. This is a separate parable, and it spans the range of verses 13 through 30. This is the parable of the talents. Watch therefore, because you do not know the day nor the hour in which the Son of Man is coming. Not even the Son of Man knew his day or his hour of his return. This much he made plain in the 36th verse of the 24th chapter. But concerning that day and the hour no one knows, not even the angels of heavens, but my Father only. So the mystery and suspense demands that we watch, we work, we witness, and we wait for it. There's an element of endurance, but we have to, be paying attention. We have to be reading the warnings and watching to register the warnings and pay attention, because it will come like a thief on the night. And much as the 10 wise virgins made their preparations, they were not caught off guard when duty called. When the Son of Man comes in all his splendor, they are going to be there waiting for him, and he's going to rapture them up if they are living on the earth. But once more, this is a second coming theme. The theme is, the foundation is more explicitly the second coming. The other is kingdom and heaven, but the second coming does bleed into it. For it is like a man going from home, who called his own servants and delivered his possessions to them. So a master of the household would have had stewards and entrusted servants to dispense of his wealth and to manage his wealth and to care for their resources and upkeep. And, they could make something for themselves if they did well, but he's dispensing his possessions because he's going away from home. And in Luke's version, this is a king who went away from home. So this would have been likened to Herod the Great, who went to Rome to receive his crown, and then he returned to his homeland. And to one he gave 5 talents, and to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability, and went from home. So he has 3 servants, and one of whom he gives 5 to, another he gives 2, and another to 1, and he knows what he's doing. He trusts, he's rewarding them with nothing more than they could handle. The servant who gave 1 and who buried in the mud, we read, the earth, lacked the ability and just completely blew it. So he did not have he who cannot be entrusted with little cannot be entrusted with much. He who is faithful in little shall be entrusted to do more. Luke 16:10. But the one of the now talents was a monetary measure. I believe it was 75 pounds of silver. So this was a lot. The sum of money is on a more grandiose scale than it is in Luke's 19th chapter. And he gives, but you can read it there. And he returned, he goes away to receive his crown. That's not mentioned in this, but, in Luke's it is. And he who had received the 5 talents went and worked with them and made another 5 talents. He made the most of what he was given. He had more than he had when he was given because he had the sum of investment. And once you get a little wealth, you have to invest it in order to procure longer enduring wealth. So how you invest that money and multiply it, now it's a lot more difficult to make 10 talents out of 1 than it is out of 5. Nevertheless, we are called, not all of us will reap, none of us are called to reap Billy Graham evangelical results, but we do the best we can and we make the best of the opportunities which come in our ways to witness and evangelize. So, don't beat yourself up if you haven't converted anyone yet. That's a definite goal. That's something to aspire for. And in the same way, with the other 2, he gained 2 more. So the one who had 2, he was the one of the mediocre ability, or the average one in the master's assessment in evaluation, according to whom. But he did the same thing that the one with the 5 did. He made the most of it. He had 2 more than he began, much as the one who had 5 more than he began. So they multiplied their wealth. They added to it sufficiently enough to have it be a multiplication. They had a 2-fold increase from what they were given. But he who had received the 1 went away and dug it in the ground and hid the silver of his master. So this other one has a strange mentality. He'd rather not lose the, just hoard the treasure, and that is not making the most of it. If you are just hiding it in the ground, what good is that? You cannot multiply more of the same. If it is hidden and buried treasure is of no value. It's not a stewardly thing to do. You can do it if you own the money, but if a master gives you his money, that is not, something, it makes no sense strategically, but his rationale is rooted in fear, and that's going to tie in. We'll explain more when we get there. And after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So a definite duration. This master was gone for a while. He took a trip. He took a extended vacation for a duration of time, but eventually he returns home, and he has to, now with privilege and opportunity comes accountability and responsibility. We have to responsibly make the most of the freedoms we exercise. We have to do it all in perfect satisfaction in proportion to our abilities. But this one who did not make the most, he hoarded the treasure and did not make anything grow from it. The master had nothing more to gain from him having given him the single one that he gave him, and the master is rightly furious of it. And he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more talents besides them. This servant can rest in comfort and security and assurance that his master will be pleased. He made the most of what his master had given him. He had multiplied it. He was producing a return for his investment. He was proving himself faithful and trustworthy because he had made the most of what had been given to him. He utilized the opportunity. He made the most of the privilege. He approached and exceeded the challenge responsibly. And for that, he could look his master straight in the eye with a straight face and, not be afraid, not be ashamed, not have to be, the one who had one and ended up with one, we're going to read, just turned out to be a completely miserable coward. And that's no way to live at all. He was afraid, and, when he approaches the master, he's just quaking, and he's saying, oh, I was afraid because you are a hard man. We'll get there when we get there. And the master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy servant. You are trustworthy over a little. I shall put you over much. Enter into the joy of the master. So this master was not only pleased, but he is one worthy of pleasing because he has a lot to give. If you do something for him, he can do something even greater for you. This is our heavenly master, the one who is our ransom and redeemer and resurrection and everything else, But the point is we have to make the most. If we want to be invited to grander scale opportunities, we have to pass the test. And this principle is present in the reception of personal revelation. If you do not make the most, if you do not make the ethical integrity of the observance of the revelation that you receive, then you're not going to be entrusted to have higher tiers of revelation. Revelation demands responsibility and doctrine and duty. There is no separation between the two in the Bible, or as we teach the Bible. Enter into the joy of the master. So that's going to be untold. It's going to be paradise restored in heaven, and it's going to be beyond description. John tries to describe it, and he virtually ransacks the Greek language in the book of Revelation, but we ain't seen nothing yet. We'll leave it at that. Then he who had received 2 talents came and said, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. See, I have gained 2 more talents besides them. He can approach him with equal confidence and the same certainty of not incurring his master's wrath or displeasure, but in fact his delight and approval and accompanying reward. So he was a faithful servant, or steward rather, because he had took what the master had given him and produced a profit of a twofold profit, much as the man with 5. And he did not produce 5 more talents, but he did produce 2 more. So he made the most of what he had. It is not the portion, but the proportion that is what is at work here. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy servant. You were trustworthy over a little. I should put you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. So he has the same reward, even though because he was faithful with littler, he still could enter into the joy of the master. The same of the one who had 5 and made 5. We are rewarded for the effort, not the outcome. So, the reason that most of us aren't called for Billy Graham results is we don't have the ability to do what he did. We did not have the attraction or anything like that. He's a once-in-a-history type of guy, but, he's just the one that's most familiar to the 20th century. There's been fantastic preachers, the likes of no one ever seen in each century. And the one who had received the 1 talent also came and said, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So this master is somewhat of a Dr. Jekyll and Hyde character, because we read that he is gracious and benevolent if you make the most of what he gives you, yet he has a wrathful temper tantrum with this servant who thought he presumed to know his master. He thought that he was a mean one because, he had reaped where he had not sown. This was the servant. When they're looking at the bottom, it's easy for them to think we do all the work. We're the ones who make it run. He just sits on his butt and collects the money, but he finances the operation, and that's just the way of the world. But so he presumes to, he reads his master wrong. He thinks that because, he says it, and being afraid, I went to hid your talent in the ground. See, you have what is yours. So he was afraid of losing the talent in the enterprise of economic investment and conducting business with his master's resources. He was afraid of losing it. So rather than lose it and take the risk, to spend money to get money, it's not difficult to do. When you have the money to spend, then you can invest and create more. It's a lot easier to do when you have a lump sum of money to, create more. When you're making money by multiplication as opposed to addition, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, that's just the way it is. But so, he wanted, he rested his case on the fact that he had not squandered or lost the master's money, and he completely read him wrong, and he incurs his wrathful retribution. Whichever one is negative, the Jekyll or the Hyde, I haven't really read that book, comes out. The monster does. And his master answering said to him, "You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gathered where I have not scattered seed." He does not deny the charges that he was, but he does call him wicked, and lazy, even though he is profiting through other men's labors. The servant is still wicked and lazy, and laziness is wickedness. Proverbs 18:9 immediately springs to mind. He who is idle is a companion or brother to him who is a great destroyer, companion or brother, depending on the translation. So when you are idle, when you are not actively engaged in the work and the spreading of the kingdom, then you're going to invite evil, destructive influences, and the world's going to look a whole lot more appealing if you're just slacking off and not embracing Christianity as more than a fair weather thing. Thick or thin is when we're Christian, and that's when we got to stick to it. Then you should have put my silver with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. So the option to accumulate interest on that sum of money, it was a 1 talent thing. A talent is a pretty substantial sum of money, but enough to accrue interest on if he put it in the bank, and rather than dug it into the ground, so that because this wicked and foolish and lazy servant probably thought that he might lose it if he gave it to the bank. We don't know that, but he should have known better, and for that he is duly chastised and punished. Therefore take away the talent from him and give it to him who possesses 10 talents. So that which belongs to the least will be gathered and accumulated in the account of the greatest. The one who made the most of the opportunity will swallow and subsume the one who is profitless and lazy and wicked and foolish and just did not, do what he needed to do. And so it accrues to the top, and he has no one to blame but himself for his own failure. He was not a faithful steward, and the other one was, so he would be removed and discarded. For to everyone who possesses more shall be given, and he shall have overflowingly. But from him who does not possess, even what he possesses shall be taken away. A similarly worded message, same substance, same concept, are communicated in the parables. So this is what I like to liken to personal revelation. If you have revelation and you act on it, you share on it, you express it, you put it into writing, whatever you do, you live it out, then you can be entrusted with having more revelation. So if you have a little and make the most of it, you can only expect greater advanced tiers of personal revelation, and it's going to be so abundant, it's going to be overflow, you're not even going to know what to do with it eventually, but you do know what to do with it if you want to make more of the same. But if you do not, if you are offered and do not accept, if you do not if you do not receive a gift, gifts have to be given, but they also have to be received. So if you choose not to have or possess the knowledge that is being communicated and imparted through whatever lesson, then you're going to end up with nothing at all. You were given something, you squandered it, you reduced it to nothingness, and you're going to lose everything and end up with nothing at all. So the opportunities we take, we have to calculate seriously the consequences and their potential. And throw the worthless servant out into the outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So this worthless servant is sent to hell. This is a master who is, has the power to cast into the outer darkness that is hell. The lake of fire is the first stage of hell, but after your physical body burns instantly in the fire, then your immortal soul dwindles. In outer space, outer solitude, just complete the outer darkness, no one there to comfort, no body to inhabit, no one to be along with. And it's going to be agonizing, and it's going to be vicious, a predatory environment, and he expounds more fully on this in the parable which comes after this, verses 31 through 46, the parable of the sheep and the goats. The goats are the ones who, like the wicked, foolish, and lazy servant, are cast into hell. The sheep hear the voice, respond to the voice, and follow it to their heavenly homeland, and his bask in his company in abundant life here and forever after. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to see you. Take care until next time. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.